Welcome to Thursday Thoughts, your weekly dose of real, honest conversation on all things personal growth. These are the chats Lucy and I love having every week over on Instagram. They're unfiltered, unedited, and always rooted in practical tools and a dose of inspiration. Let's dive in. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Yes, good. Thank you. How are you?
I am okay. I'm not sure I'm feeling main character energy this morning, which is our topic. But hey, I'll give it a go.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, I'll let you take it away because this was your idea.
Well, I don't know where this came from, but it kind of just dropped to me. And maybe it's because something actually I've been quite aware of in my own life recently. But the topic which I came up with this morning was, are we being the main character in our own lives, or are we being more of a supporting role, a supporting actor's role? And I think this is quite a juicy topic in a way, because so often, and for so many different reasons, sometimes we can be not owning our life, just not owning our role in our own life. We are constantly, well, okay, let me talk about it from my point of view, is probably the easiest way to do it. So I know most of my life, I have never wanted to be in the limelight. I haven't wanted to be in the spotlight. And I say that, but then sometimes I do. But there's a big part of me which is wanting to kind of let everyone else be in the spotlight, and I'll just sit beside and just sort of be there and don't have the main light on me. And actually, that is a pattern I've really noticed. It's like, don't draw attention to yourself. It's that visibility piece, which I know both you and I have worked so hard on to get visible, to be comfortable with being more visible. But I think
like right now, for example.
Well, exactly, like right now, exactly. So it's more about just asking yourself, am I the main character in my own life? Because this life is yours. This is the only life we have. Or are we actually stepping aside and making it more about all the other people in our lives? You know, we're all so good at looking after everybody else, caring for other people, putting other people before ourselves. And I mean, my words for this year, which I've got literally there beside me, is own it, own what you do, own what you're doing, own everything that you believe in. Stop worrying and doubting yourself that it might not be quite right, or it might not be acceptable to a small number of people. Or, you know, it's like, do you be who you truly are, and just step into that role fully and forget about everybody else. It's almost like put your blinkers on and be you and do you and own that version of you. And I mean, a big part of this really is just stop worrying what everybody else thinks, because you know that it's not about them, it's about you and in your life. So that is what I really thought. That's what came to me this morning, and I think it's something which we can all probably do more of, is own what we do. And I mean, I've seen you, Lucy, you know, throughout the time I've known you, and in terms of your business, your business, I've really seen you. I mean, it's been amazing to watch. You have literally stepped into you and are fully owning everything that you believe in and what you do. And you know, I'm on the journey. I'm doing it more, and it doesn't mean that you have to be like a massive extrovert. And I think that's what we often believe.
I'm an introvert.
Yeah, I think often we think we have to be really loud and outrageous and outgoing and outrageous to own it. But actually you don't, because I'm definitely not that kind of person. I'm much softer and gentler. But it's more about really feeling comfortable in your own skin, so that you absolutely have that real confidence and belief in yourself, in what you believe in, and you can project that outwards, out into the world.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I love the fact that your word of the year is own it, or your two words of the year is own it, because you're so right. And actually, I mean, as you know, like my audience are single women without kids, and I think, you know, when it comes to main character energy and being the main character in your own life and all that, I think it can be a lot easier to do that as a single woman, because you know you're not having to look after a husband or children and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think probably the flip side of that is there are probably single women out there who feel the exact opposite because they are single and they don't have kids. Do you know what I mean? It's like everything. It's the way that you frame it. But I think, yeah, you and thanks for what you said. I really appreciate that. And I think it's a lot to do with ultimately, if you don't believe what you're talking about, then you're not going to fucking own it. So you have to, which is why, and this is something that you and I have talked about endlessly on Monday Motivation. It's like, you got to do the thing that lights you up. Like, you got to do the thing that you want to be doing, the thing that makes you come alive. And not very many of us are doing that, I don't think. But it's very difficult to own something that you don't believe in. When you do believe in something, however, it's much easier to own it. That doesn't mean it's easy. And as you know better than most, like, the journey to me, quote, owning it has been, it's been full of twists and turns. And I still, to this day, you know, sometimes I have to consciously kind of embody that. It doesn't always come naturally. And of course, you know, confidence, this is a topic that you and I remember it's one of the first things that you and I talked about on Monday Motivation, however long ago that was, like over 2 years ago. And confidence is not something that you either have or you don't have. It's a decision you make to, like we've talked about confidencing. It's like you know,
you practice confidence.
Yeah,
You've got to
exactly.
practice it.
Exactly that. You have to practice confidence. I was going to say something else off the back of what you said, and I'm having a menopausal moment as per usual, and it's just completely gone out of my mind. It was off the back of something you said, and I can't remember what it was. So over to you.
No,
Sorry.
No. So we have to. It is a lot of this is about confidence and feeling that you are able to be that main character, you know, in your life. Because I think some of us can think, oh, it's a bit, you know, it can be a bit selfish to start, you know, it's all about me. But actually, for fuck's sake,
That's such bollocks.
It's total bollocks, because
we don't do that enough.
No, we have one life, and we're always constantly apologising.
Oh my God.
Everybody else is like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to take up too much space. I'm just going to sort of sit over here and be quiet and fit in. And I think particularly as women, that's been the sort of narrative for so many, for decades, for centuries, that we are meant to be, you know, subservient and fit in. And it's actually, we've got to override that. However uncomfortable that may feel, we've got to override it. We've got to start taking up space and owning it and being in our bigness rather than shrinking. And that's what I feel like I very much have done for a lot of my life. It's almost like shrinking to fit in, to keep everyone happy, to just not gonna like beat my drum and go, here I am, everybody. And actually, yeah, I am definitely working on trying to step out and just be a bigger version of myself and go, this is me, because why not? No one else is going to do it for you. Only you can do it. Of course, you can champion other people, but actually, ultimately, it's the energy that you're putting out. So if you're shrinking, that negative, that energy is shrinking energy. Whereas actually, we need to be like, right, I am here. This is me. I 100% believe in what I'm doing. And if you don't 100% believe in what you're doing, what you can do, I was actually spoke to someone on my podcast last week, and a couple of people I've spoken to actually on my podcast have suggested doing this, is to have some sort of alter ego. I know that Beyonce has an alter
Sasha
ego.
Fierce.
Yes, exactly. So it's almost creating a character which has qualities of you, which you know are there, which you know you want to be that version of you. But it's almost like creating a character to go, okay, I'm going to embody this person and be all that she is and step into her. And so you use her in those moments when you're feeling a little bit nervous, a little bit shy, and stepping into that energy. And then it gives you that confidence to be able to move forward, because ultimately when you do move forward with that energy, you get that momentum building, and it feels a lot easier as you take those steps forwards.
I will only ever recommend brands that I know, love, and use myself. And one of those is Ancient and Brave. Honestly, they've become part of my daily habits. The very first thing I do every morning is pour myself a big glass of water with their True Hydration in it. It feels like such a simple ritual, but it really sets me up for the day. And I know I'm properly rehydrating with their blend of electrolytes and minerals, especially before I exercise, which I always do in the morning. Then later on, when I make my coffee, I stir in their True Collagen powder into the coffee. Now, it blends in straight away, no fuss, there's no taste, and collagen is something we naturally lose as we age, but it's so important for our skin, joints, and overall vitality. Now, I'll be honest, Ancient and Brave may cost a little more than some of the tubs you'll spot on supermarket shelves, but the difference is you're getting the highest quality ingredients, sourced with integrity and tested to a higher standard, and absolutely no nasties added. That's why I trust them and why I think they're worth every penny. And because I want you to be able to try them out for yourself, I've got a special offer for you. As a listener of this podcast, you can get 20% off your very first order. All you need to do is click the link in the show notes and pop in the code POLLYW20 at checkout. They've got more than just collagen and hydration too. They've got creatine, they've got blends, supplements. So it's a perfect chance to explore their range and make the most of that 20% off.
Yeah. I just want to go back to something that you said. And yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. But I just wanted to go back to something you were talking about earlier about how, there's this ridiculous narrative. And this is one of the narratives around single women, right? It's the classic, like, they're selfish. Single women are selfish. Like, I've done a reel about this because I wrote about this in my book. It's which is called Shiny Happy Singles, FYI, for anyone who fancies buying it. But this selfish myth around single people, it speaks to what you were saying just now, which is this idea that, if you want to do something for yourself, then you are too much or you are too selfish. And so that's, kind of there is definitely that sort of vibe sometimes around single women. It's definitely one of the stories around single women that we're selfish because we're not having kids. Who the actual fuck came up with this? Well, the patriarchy came up with it. That's who. To keep women quiet and small, so things can just carry on ticking along nicely. It's one thing that frankly gets on my tits because it's just absurd. This ridiculous idea that we're kind of, I'm not saying we're not here to serve other people. I'm not saying we're not here to help other people, care for other people, love other people. But you know what? We're also here for ourselves. We're also here to live the best fucking life we possibly can. We're not here to go, I'm going to put everybody else ahead in front of me. I'm going to prioritize everybody else and how they feel above and beyond how I feel. No, it's such crap. And it's this story, it's this, and particularly, Betty Bottom Dollar, men don't feel like that. Men don't feel like they can't be main character energy. Men don't feel like they're not the main characters in their life. It's women who have been conditioned to play small. And this is another thing that you and I have talked about multiple times. Sorry, I'm getting passionate, I know, but I can't help it, as you know. But here I go, buckle up. But no, for years, I lived my life in that space. For years, I suppressed who I actually really, truly was. Playing small, well, what's everyone going to think? And I remember I've talked about this before. When I worked at Radio 2 for years, I wanted to be behind the fucking microphone. I didn't want to be going and getting somebody the coffee and going and getting the artists or the musicians from reception. I wanted to be behind the mic, right? But guess what? I never, ever told anyone that, ever. I never told my sister. I never told my best friends. It was a secret, a dirty little secret that I kept to myself. Because, Lucy, how absurd that you would ever think that you could ever be a presenter. Who the hell do you think you are? And this is the way that we've been taught to think, women in particular. And as you know, because I've talked about it on here and you and I have talked about this privately, but I got to a stage where my soul was like practically bursting to come out of myself, because I couldn't handle it any longer. I couldn't suppress myself and who I really am any longer. I couldn't push back my potential any longer. I got to the stage where I had to start doing something about it. So I did. And that's not to say it's not easy, but what I'm trying to point out is, as women, I think we have to really recognize this about ourselves, that we feel guilty if we want. I'm sorry, there's no such thing as wanting too much for yourself. You're allowed to want as much as you fucking well want for yourself. You're allowed to want an amazing life. And that doesn't negate also caring about the people that you love. But somehow we've been led to believe, particularly when you're married, I mean, that's one of the benefits of being single, that you don't have that sort of feeling like you've got to put yourself first, because your husband comes first and your kids come first and everyone comes before you. But I do think we have to be careful about that. We are equally important, not least because when we are depleted and when we're not putting ourselves first, actually we don't show up very well for the people around us, because we're not feeling that great. We're depleted. We're not. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. So yes. So you are obviously all about the single women. So I talk a lot to women in midlife who often have families, who have kids, who are in relationships, and often sacrifice so much for their family, for their kids, to make it work. They go over and above to keep everybody else happy. And
they forget what they want.
Yeah, it's a well-known thing now that they are absolutely worn out, exhausted, and their needs are at the bottom of the pile, and they completely forget what they want. And then there gets to a time where you hit midlife and you've got menopause going on, and often when you go through menopause, the estrogen, which is often that sort of, it's like keeps everything a little bit rose tinted, when that starts to go and it's a bit depleted, suddenly you see it for what it is, and it's like, I'm not having this anymore. This is absolutely not on. And that's when like that real tension and anger and rage and all those feelings come up. It's like, no, you need to fulfill your own needs, because otherwise it absolutely eats away at you inside and makes you incredibly miserable. You have to fulfill what you are, what you want. And often though, it gets to a point where you don't even know what you want, because you have been putting everybody else first for so long. You don't know what it is you want. So the first step really is just figuring out, what the hell do I want? And not, we're so good at saying what we don't want. It's like, what do I want? And then it is taking those small actions, those small steps to get there, and unapologetically get there without, again, and I've done this, I have a family, I've got 3 kids, I have changed career, I have very much sacrificed a lot of what I've wanted to do, because my husband's the major breadwinner in the relationship. And this is often the case, this can be the case because I obviously had to take time off to have my 3 babies. So that's how it just naturally worked out for us. Obviously, every relationship is different. But in order for me to then restart, I've always had to work it around kids, family, everything else. And I can't, I felt so much frustration of not being able to 100% throw myself into it, because I haven't been able to, because I'm, I've got to go pick the kids up, or I've got to go do this or whatever. So I think now though, and that is the reality of life. And often if you're in a relationship and you do have children, you've got to make a compromise. It's compromise. And I know you talk about all the benefits of being single, but you don't have to do any of that. So that is the very real reality of it. But as I'm getting older, and I think if you're getting older and you've got families and kids, actually this amazing freedom begins to come, because kids, my kids now are that much older. And, I have an incredibly supportive husband. He's wanting me to succeed more than anybody else. But, I still have responsibilities within the family, but actually I have more time and space. And so for me now, this is an amazing time, I feel, for me to really stop worrying about everybody else's needs so much, because my kids now are at a point where they don't need it so much. And I can step into myself to own it as much as I can. And I know that I've been slightly on the sidelines always. I'm trying to own it. And then it's like, oh, I'm just going to sit to the side a little bit here. I'm not going to go into that full energy, that full main character energy, as you call it. And so that's the practice, that's the work, that's kind of like each small steps, constantly becoming aware of it. It's becoming aware of the patterns when you start to shrink, and actually go, oh, catch it. It's like catching that pattern and going, no, move into the center, move in and own it.
Yeah, completely. I've done that thing again where I had something on the tip of my tongue that I was going to say off the back of, what did you just say? Remind me and then I'll remember.
Oh gosh, I was saying about...
There was something... Oh, I know what I was going to say. I was going to say, when you were talking about how, like, obviously you're married and you have 3 kids, and so you put yourself on the sidelines for much of that period of your life. And it just made me think how... much as I like to think I would have been a good mum, I mean, we'll never know, but I genuinely these days, because as you know, I call myself child-free, but I always assumed I would have kids. I'm being really inarticulate. The point I'm trying to get to is the fact that I have realised in the last few years that exactly what we're talking about, had I had kids, because I know myself so well these days, I just know that I would have been one of those mums who would have felt bitter and resentful and angry. I know I would, because I know myself. And if I got married and had kids, that doesn't mean, of course I would have loved my kids. Whether I'd still love my husband, we'll never know that either. But do you know what I mean? I know that I would have loved my kids, but I also know that I would have been silently sort of bitter and seething and resentful because I have such a strong need to do what I want to do with my life, And it's just really interesting to think about that. And if I ever had any, I've never had any regrets about not having kids. I've had moments of wondering, and as you know, I've gone through grief at not having kids. That sort of very physical feeling. But I am so relieved now that I didn't, because I never had to go through that. And I wouldn't have wanted to. I know that I wouldn't have liked myself if I'd gone down that path, because I know I can just see exactly what would have been going on in my mind, and how I'd have been like fucking hell and annoyed because, I'd have had to have done this, and I've had to. So I think it must be really, really difficult to sort of put your needs aside. But it's great that you are now at the stage now, like you say, where you can let go of that a bit now, because your kids are growing up and you can now step into who you are and focus on you. But you also have to be very mindful that you've got to keep owning that, because like you say, sometimes you find yourself back on the sidelines going, oh, well, I'll just put my needs aside for a minute. No. That's the thing. We have to manage that. We have to stay in control of that, because otherwise life, especially when you're married with kids, life just takes you down its own path, and you kind of veer off your path, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So so for me, I have to really, really be conscious of this and work on this and be strict. And also you could use it. It's be very easy to use it as an excuse to why you're not doing the things that you actually want to do. It's almost like sometimes, so it's like, oh, well, I can't do this because actually I haven't got time because I've got to be doing this. And actually it's very easy to use it all as an excuse. And it's actually like, and I think I've done that as well, if I'm honest, to excuse myself for not doing, keep going and being that main character energy, because actually it feels uncomfortable to me to do that. So it's as we always say, Lucy, it's about awareness. It's about awareness, catching these thoughts, understanding where it's coming from. And I do also believe there's probably quite a few subconscious beliefs going on, which you probably have picked up through your life. And one of them being, the patriarchy kind of conditioning about a woman's role in society. But I think also there probably were times where you do, I did stand out, and then I didn't like being everyone looking at me. I know there's certain events in my childhood where that would have kind of informed some of this desire to slightly step aside rather than be in the center stage, which I think we've probably all had some sort of experience of that. So it's just being aware of these patterns and actually finding that those small steps which you can do to embody that energy. So I think practice confidence, get uncomfortable, the little steps of courage to do the things, to be visible, to own it. Instagram is a great example of this. I mean, I still feel uncomfortable putting out videos and owning what I'm saying, and particularly when they kind of completely bomb and you get nothing from them, and it's a bit like, oh God, do I just keep going? Do I just keep going? And I mean, you're again another example that actually one should keep going because it can actually really explode. But it's again having that faith, having that belief in yourself that you can do it, and that you are on the right path.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, Instagram is a very good example of that. And one thing just to add to what you said you still feel uncomfortable, and so do I. I mean, Jesus, I feel like a twat on a regular basis on Instagram. Or because especially, and now I put a reel out every single day, and it's always like a reel to camera, banging on about something to do with singlehood or mindset or whatever. And, there are days where, because I've made a commitment to myself, like I have made a decision, I'm going to put one out every day. There are no excuses. Like, there's just no excuses. No days off. Every fucking day I've said I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it. For 1 year, and then we'll see how I feel. Probably exhausted, because my God, even it doesn't look like much, but bloody hell, on top of everything else, it's a lot. Anyway, but what I was going to say is that there are some days where I put one out and I'm like, oh, that's a load of shit. What am I on about? Like literally. And I think this is where not being perfect is also quite a useful thing to lean into, because I, quite a long time ago, especially, you and I both know we've both got podcasts. Quite a long time ago, I kind of held my hands up and went, I cannot be perfect. Otherwise, I'm never going to do this. So I got quite comfortable with just putting stuff out, putting content out that is far from perfect. But I always think to myself, it's better than nothing. Something is better than nothing. And I think that is that's a real lesson that I had to learn, is to, get out of the sort of perfectionist, which ultimately is just procrastination sort of in disguise. It's like, oh, well, it's not perfect yet, so I can't put it out. Well, it's bollocks. It's just because you're scared and you don't want to put it out. And actually, it's so good when you get used to doing things that are imperfect, you just kind of got to do it. You just kind of got to do it. And that is a really, really good way of building that confidence muscle. Because you just think, oh, fuck it.
Yeah, I've got so good at doing that. I remember with my first few podcasts I recorded, I literally was editing it wasn't really the other person. It was constantly editing myself, because I was like, oh my God, why can't I just speak clearly and succinctly? Constantly editing all the bits out. And now I just think, it's fine. I just leave it as it is. I'm not bothered. It is who I am. So people are either going to listen or they can switch off. Yeah. And that's that. You've got to, it's ultimately about just being yourself is the most important thing. And I think that's what people relate to most, is just being you. And if you're too perfect, people don't want you to be too perfect or things to be too perfect. It's not as relatable. So yes.
But the irony is that again, this is something we've talked about before, but the irony is that the hardest thing to do for most people is to be themselves. It's so absurd when you think about it. It's so absurd. In fact, I think we should do a Monday Motivation about honesty. Because I'm sure we've done one before, but I don't think that human beings are very honest with each other a lot of the time. Yeah. I think we're all wandering around basically.
Forget something else.
Yeah, we're all wandering around not being entirely honest with each other about. And I've got a situation in my life at the moment that's brought this to mind. And I'm just like, I think we should talk about it. Maybe next week.
There we go. Oh my God, amazing. We've got a topic for next week, a week ahead.
I know, God.
Perfect. Well, listen, it's 9:29. I think we've done that one.
I think we have.
Be the main character in your life. Stop going to the sidelines. I mean, this is a message to me more than anything as well. So yeah, own it. Own it.
All right, babe. Well, have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Speak to you soon.
All
Lots of
right,
love.
take care.
See you next week.